You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Friday. You know what that means. It means we are back. Locked On Wolverines podcast, Locked On Podcast Network, which is all about your team every day. I apparently don't even know what to say. That's why I'm going to go ahead and bring on Mackey Award-winning tight end Jake Butt to talk for me. If you don't have anything to say, this is going to be a short one. It's going to be 5 minutes long. I think we're fine with that today. But nonetheless, I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire. So Michigan is playing Indiana. Certainly people want to wash the bad taste out of their mouths, given what just happened last week. It would be a disappointment if they don't, of course, given that Indiana is 2-6 on the season, 0 wins in the Big Ten. Everyone thought Indiana was going to be really good. Turns out everyone was wrong. Basically everyone. It's been a comedy of errors for the Hoosiers. They haven't looked nearly what they were supposed to look like. Michael Penix is out. Jack Tuttle came in. Looks like he's probably out too. Donovan McCauley, the true freshman, is the guy that's got to come in, and he's got to face this Michigan defense. Suddenly, Indiana offensively can't get a lot going. Defensively, sometimes it looks really good. Sometimes it doesn't. With that all in mind, Jake, what do you want to see from Michigan specifically in this game? Because there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it, a lot of different ways to I'm not going to use the axiom I was going to use or the idiom I was going to use, but nonetheless, there's so many different things that could happen in a game like this. What do you want to see from Michigan as they try to rebound after the Michigan State game?
Well, you said it, Isaiah, there's only one antidote for a loss, and it's that much more important and urgent to get that in your system, and that's a win. And here's the thing about Indiana is they're not good this year. No wins in the Big Ten. I don't expect this weekend to be their first win in the Big Ten, but it is Indiana, and they always seem to play Michigan tough. They do. Something just happens in the game, and it's always a little closer than you'd like to think. So what I'd like to see from the University of Michigan football team is to break that trend and break Indiana and dominate them. I think I want to start with the defensive side of the ball. Traditionally, Indiana is good at, they use multiple snap counts. They get free plays. In my playing days, they would get us to jump off sides, or they would crease us where a gap was left open, or, somebody misses an assignment in the back end of our defense. Well, that's been our problem defensively. So what I want to see is all 11 guys play selfish. Now, what do I mean by that? Do your job. Play disciplined defense, okay? Don't worry about what the guys around you are doing. If your job is to be in the B gap, you be in the B gap. If they crease a run in the A gap, we'll address who missed that gap, okay? So what we've been doing all season is we're playing sound defense 95% of the time, but the 10% of the time on the other end is killing us. I don't want to see any of these big plays. I don't want to see any plays broken deep. And I want to see Michigan's defense respond with a clean, disciplined 4-quarter game, playing collectively as a unit, and get this thing steered right back on track.
Now, yeah, that's super important because, any team in the Big Ten, if you aren't playing disciplined football, can have a chance. Michigan certainly can out-athlete Indiana, but nonetheless, Indiana's got some athletes too this time around. They still have Ty Freifogel. They still have Peyton Hendershot. They got Stephen Carr, who transferred from USC. He's a guy who I remember Tyrone Wheatley really wanted as the future Michigan running back. Now he's in Bloomington. They've got, doesn't play, but they've got former Michigan center Zach Carpenter. They've gotten their fair share through the transfer portal as well. So with that in mind, what do you want to see offensively? Do you want to see Michigan continue to throw the ball? Because I feel like you're going to need a little bit more balance. Of course, they're going to have to run the ball, but Indiana really slowed down Kenneth Walker when they played when they played Michigan State. I think that we've seen that Michigan knows how to run the ball earlier in the season. I want to see them personally stack a few passing games on top of each other, because that last game of the season against Ohio State, they're going to need to be able to do both. So I kind of feel like with Indiana not having the best pass defense, they're, I think, 98th in the country. I stealing that from Trent Knoop, who writes for me at Wolverines Wire. But so he better be right. Otherwise he's out. But nonetheless, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I kind of want to see another 400-yard passing game. Maybe that's asking a lot, but I want to see Michigan have that type of offensive look. What are your thoughts on the offense going into this game?
Well, really, Isaiah, is traditionally what in the Jim Harbaugh era, we've dominated lesser teams and especially lesser defenses. But in that domination, it's just easy. We don't get creative. We run, inside zone, outside zone, a little bit of gap schemes, power. We have to play this game. This is an audition for Penn State and Ohio State down the line. Forget that you're playing Indiana and treat this like it's the Big Ten championship. Okay. Don't make it so, of course we got to win the game, but let's not get too comfortable out there just handing the ball off inside zone, inside zone, inside zone, because yes, we can do that, but we're talented enough to do other things. The passing game is going to be important. Some of those throws Cade made last week were amazing. He was throwing the ball under duress before the receiver even made his break, and he's throwing to a spot. So we saw Cade really take a big step forward last week. I want to continue to see that this week. Cornelius Johnson, there was a couple plays that you kind of left some meat on the bone last week. I'd like to get him back on track. Let's continue to use Andrell Anthony. Let's get Eric All involved. Let's get our backs catching the ball out of the backfield, because ultimately, if we want to go achieve the things that we're capable of, which is going on to beat Penn State, going on to beat Ohio State, and winning potentially a Big Ten championship, we need to do more than just run the easy inside zones. And here's what I'm really looking for. All that aside, I think we'll be able to do what we want against this Michigan defense. Red zone offense. Okay. When we get down there, that's where it's absolutely imperative that we don't just turn around and hand the ball off. Ohio State will not let us do that. Penn State will not let us do that. So why practice it? Let's get into our bag a little bit. Let's, explore and try and see who we can trust to make plays down there, and whose number we will call when the situation needs a play to be made. It's going to come down to red zone offense. It's been a problem for far, far too long. And you know what? It needs to be addressed sooner than later, man, because it's make or break at this point down the stretch.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that here in just a moment. We are gonna get into everything with the red zone offense. But before we do, because I want to know, Jake, what your thoughts are on it. I don't feel like we got into it enough against when we were talking about X's and O's and against Michigan State. But before we do, this episode of Locked On Wolverines is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get a tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can reconnect. It's a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing that they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team, or the away team can come to recharge. It's the place you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. Certainly, I've had plenty of opportunities in my life to go and get McDonald's. Certainly, the breakfast is one of my favorites. That's my favorite thing on a road trip when I'm driving, Jake, is when it's like at Indiana. I think it was actually when you guys played at Indiana in 2015. I stopped at the Loves on the border of Indiana and Ohio, and got me a McDonald's breakfast. It was delicious. It fueled me all the way to get to Bloomington on time before y'all got into that crazy matchup against the Hoosiers in multiple overtimes. So whether it's coming in after a Little League game, stopping at McDonald's after a big sporting event, or before in the case like I mentioned, or doing like my ex-colleague used to do, was connecting to Wi-Fi when you need to get work done, McDonald's is the place to go. So head over to your local McDonald's to refuel, reconnect. I'm loving it. All right, Jake. So we talked about how you want to see more red zone offense. Obviously, since the Wisconsin game forward, that's been an issue this year. I mean, it goes back more than just this year, but nonetheless, when you look at how things have gone this season in particular, what are some of the things that you're seeing that make it so Michigan's not being effective once it gets down into either the green zone or the red zone?
It really comes down to, predictability and comfort. And I feel like this has been our strength. It's a double-edged sword where we know, early in the season, we're playing against lesser teams. We know we can just out physical. We don't need to worry about calling the right play, to see where we have numbers, to see what coverage it is. we're just going to beat Northern Illinois by handing the ball off. And that's what we do. And it's easy. You feel good about it. But then you play a team like Michigan State and you try to turn around and hand it up the gut twice and they stuff it. Well, we need to get into the huddle and you know what the great teams do. And when you have, this is why I like Cade at quarterback, is when you have a veteran quarterback that has a very vast knowledge of the offense and can grasp it and can understand defenses, you got to call multiple plays in the huddle. You have to have checks that you can adjust to when you get to the line of scrimmage. So let's not just go out there and say, hey, we're going to run it up the gut against Indiana because we can. Let's get in our formation and let's see what we have. If we have man coverage press outside with only one safety over top, we got to get out of a run. We have to find a man beater that we can check to at the line. And we got to see who's going to be able to execute that man beater and win and catch and score. Okay, so, you know, you go, like we said last week in Michigan State, is we had 6 blockers, 5 O-line and 1 tight end for 8 Michigan State defenders. And I'm including the safety who was at 10 yards deep because his eyes were in the backfield. He didn't care about the 3 receivers. And why should he? We were never going to throw the ball. So this week, I want to see us a little bit more, you know, creative. And let's not call plays that we know will work just because we're bigger, faster, stronger. Let's call plays that we know we have numbers on that give us an advantage strategically. So it's something that happens when we get, you know, especially coming off a loss, you worry that we're going to get, you know, try to do things a little easier and just try to get right back on track. But ultimately, we're playing for bigger things than just beating Indiana at this point. So we have to start practicing of putting our players in the best position from a strategic and schematic standpoint, even if that requires, I'm okay with us trying to throw the ball in the air. If it's a great concept and a great scheme, even if it doesn't work out, we need to get those repetitions live on a Saturday because ultimately we're going to need them when we play against better teams down the stretch of the schedule.
And you know what? One of the things that I've kind of noted too is when you look at the state of the Michigan offense, people love your ex-quarterback, Jake Rudock, for instance. Yeah. People love to talk about him as being maybe the best Michigan quarterback that Harbaugh has had. Yeah. However, it wasn't until this week, not in Indiana week particularly, but the week, it was this week in November against Rutgers, I believe. I think it was this week or last week, one of the two. Back 6 years ago when he finally started to click, right? He was only throwing like 150-ish yards a game, and then that Rutgers game happened, and after that, things took off. So this is an opportunity as well for the Michigan offense to figure out its red zone woes, for Cade McNamara and or J.J. McCarthy to really come alive because, you know, again, people talk about Cade as like, well, all right, we know what we have there. No, you don't, because Jake Rudock was a 5th-year guy. We didn't see anything from him really until week 10. And then suddenly against Rutgers, then against Indiana and Penn State and Ohio State and Florida, suddenly, excuse me, it all changed. It all just came up. But I wanted to touch on before we move on to the to our score predictions, because we're keeping this one light. We don't need to get into the weeds with what Indiana is or isn't. All we can say about this game is if Michigan loses, it is a disaster, right? But what one of your favorite games, if not your favorite game that you ever played in, was your last game at the Big House in 2016, and that came against Indiana. That was a tough game. 20-10, I believe the final score was offhand. But it was the snow game. It was like living in a snow globe. What do you remember about that game? Both just how Indiana played. That was Tom Allen's first year coaching the Hoosiers, as well as just memories of why you liked that game so much.
I remember, you know, it was my last game in the Big House, and, you know, that gets played up in anticipation of the game. But at least for me personally, is I didn't think about it too much. I didn't think it was going to be anything big. I was, you know, trying to just downplay and say, hey, we're going to play, you know, we're going to play the game and let it be what it's going to be. But as the game played out, it wasn't as clean as we would have liked it to be. Davion Smith stepped up huge that day with Wilton Spate being down. We had John come in, and, you know, Davion, a guy that was in our class, a senior, it was senior night, really stepped up. We had to run the ball. You know, we had to kind of fight a little bit for that win. It wasn't clean and easy. But I just remember towards the fourth quarter when we're getting in 4-minute offense, we got to run the ball. The snow started falling, And you'd think when you come to the University of Michigan, you're playing up north in the Big Ten, that you're going to have snow games, kind of often in the month of November. That was the only one I really remember playing in the big house where snow was falling like that. And it started coming down really, really hard. You couldn't see the secondary when you were in your stance. You really couldn't see the other side of the offensive line when you were in your stance. It was a thick, thick snow. And it just felt nostalgic. It felt like Christmas, man. And we ended up winning the game, and it was such a senior heavy team. And at that point, we knew we controlled our own destiny. We knew, who we were facing, what was at stake. And I just remember sitting down in the snow and just taking it all in. I mean, I'm a kid from Columbus, Ohio. Grew up on the east side, 15 minutes from, Ohio State Stadium. Grew up a Buckeye fan. And I never had a clue, I never thought I was even going to play college football, let alone start in college football, let alone be so close and have such a, joint impact with the University of Michigan fans and the Ann Arbor community. And it finally hit me. I was downplaying, and it finally hit me to look around that stadium, and I just couldn't help but cry, thinking of all the memories, all the summer workouts, all the sweat and sacrifice we made collectively as a team. And realizing there, I love Michigan. I knew it always, but I knew it there that, like, I am so proud to wear that block M on my chest. I'm so proud to represent the wing helmet, represent myself, my family, and what the football program stands for, all those that came before me and all those that will come after me. It took me back to my earlier years when we were under Coach Oak, and we were 5-7 and we were not good. And I remember walking into Dan Farino's office when we were struggling early in the season. I was coming off my ACL recovery. I wasn't playing as much as I would have wanted to that yet early in the season. I think they were holding me back a little bit, making sure I was healthy. And I looked at Coach Farino and I started crying. And I'm like, wearing this block M on my chest, like, I do not take that lightly. This means everything to me. Like, I'm not going to go ever take the field and leave. I'm never going to give you 50%. I'm going to give you every single thing I have for this block M. It means something. Like, this isn't Indiana, no offense. This isn't Illinois. This isn't Penn State. This isn't anywhere. This is one of one, man. And it means something. And, to go on our junior year, we built something. Our senior year, we built something. I happened to be captain, elected by my teammates. Was going on to be a 2-time All-American, which has only been done. I don't even think it's been done 20 times in Michigan history. To take that all in and remember, all at once, it just hit me. Wow, man, these 4 years at the University of Michigan will have such an impact on my life, and they'll continue to have an impact until the day I die, man. I will bleed maize and blue. So, for the seniors that are winding down the season, this isn't our last game. This isn't senior night, but it happens fast, man. The clock's ticking. There's only a handful of games left and a couple handfuls of opportunities to play in this stadium. And, even playing in the NFL and traveling around the league, there's not a lot of places like the Big Ten. And in fact, not a lot of places like the Big House. And in fact, there's no places like the Big House, man. So for the fans, cheer our players, root for them. For the players, try to soak it all in and make the most of it, man. And go out there and play your asses off and get a win, man.
It's the second to last game at the Big House this year. Obviously, the last one is the one we all have our eye on, being Ohio State. Now, we have to move on. We're going to talk about what we think we're going to see in the game here momentarily. But before we do, I got to tell you about a few things, Jake. And the first one is BetOnline, because it's back. It's better than ever. It's got a new web interface for the start of basketball season. They've got even more props, odds, lines and ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to receive said bonus. From basketball, football, baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, Jake, soon, sometime, hopefully within the next week, I'm going to be able to give you your very first Built Bar, because I've got a box of my favorite coming, the peanut butter brownie. I can't wait for you to try it. I'm super excited because I am been, as I've told you a million times over, I've told everyone listening that it's by far my favorite. I've had to settle for other things while I wait for this new box to come. It's terrible. I don't like it nearly as much. The great thing about Built Bar is it tastes like a candy bar, but yet it is high protein, low calorie, low carb. I can have two like a glutton and still have it be lower calorie and higher protein than going out and getting a Metrics Big 100, which used to be my go-to until Built Bar completely changed my life in that sense. So I'm excited about it. It is an incredible product. I have put my money where my mouth is dozens upon dozens of times at this point. So I can't wait for you to try it, Jake. For anyone else, go to built.com, put in promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your next order. That's built.com, promo code LOCKED15. All right, let's finish out here. We've only got a couple minutes left here, but I don't remember my score prediction because I did it yesterday, and normally I try to be consistent in this, so I'm gonna have to come up with another one. I think I'll probably end up being close to hitting it, but nonetheless, I have my opinions of how I see this game going. I'll share those in a moment. Jake, what do you think is going to happen in this game for Michigan?
This is a story about, redemption. It's important that we exemplify the leadership that we've had all season. I think these players they got a bad taste in their mouth and they know what needs to be done. They had a player-led meeting earlier in the week. Once again, just showing leadership, man. They're not just having those meetings to check a box. They're having those meetings from the heart, talking about what needs to be done and what's ahead of them. So when you get punched in the face, man, that only then do you find out what you're made of. When it's easy, anyone's good. When your back's against the wall, that's when you find out what you're made of. So what I'm expecting and I'm looking forward to seeing is the Michigan Wolverines are going to go out and dominate Indiana this weekend. My score prediction is going to be, this is what I hope, okay? The how I got to 35 points is because it's 7 touchdowns. All right, Jake Moody, I love you. You're a weapon. There will come you'll play in the NFL for many, many years. Thank you for being so good. But this week, get a hand warmer out. It's going to be a little chilly at night. Maybe get some hot chocolate on the sideline. Come in there and, do your kickoffs and your extra points. We don't need you. We're not cooking footballs or kicking field goals this week. All right, please. 35-10, University of Michigan.
I like it. I've got something similar. I'm going to go. I think I said 35, so I'll stay with that. I'm going to go 35-6 because I don't think that Indiana is going to be able to score many touchdowns without having either of their, if it was Jack Tuttle, I still don't think they would have been able to do it. I think it's going to be the same. It's going to be really hard for Donovan McCauley to do much against this Michigan defense. Certainly, I think that Michigan's offense is going to end up, even if it is, let's say it's a 4th and 3, I think in the red zone, I think they're going to go for it rather than go for points because I think they're just at this point of we need to figure this out with the live bullets flying. So I'm curious to see what they do. One more question for you, Jake, and then we'll pack it up. Considering you've been in the shoes of these Michigan players, you can harken back to 2015, disappointing loss against Michigan State, a game that should have been a Michigan win, kind of similar to this one. You get your heart ripped out. How do you move on from that? How difficult is it to turn the page? You were able to turn the page against Minnesota. It wasn't easy, but a lot of that was because Jake Rudock was injured.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you turn the page going from a very hard, disappointing, gut-wrenching loss to actually being able to get back on the winning side of things?
Yeah, well, if you go back to that Minnesota game, actually, if you remember all the circumstances, we were coming off an emotional loss. So you typically you are a little emotionally drained. It's a little bit harder to recover throughout the week. We came ready to play, but it was Halloween night in Minnesota, and their coach, beloved coach, longtime coach, had a heart attack pregame, so he was down. So of course the whole stadium and all the players and all the coaches are bought in. They played a hell of a game that game, and it came down to the wire. We found a way to win. So that's what you have good teams that when you get tested a little bit and you come off a loss, you either throw in the towel and say we're done, season's over, whatever, or you say, you know what, man, screw that, we're not done. We should have won that game, and now somebody's got to pay. somebody's got to pay. And it doesn't matter who, it's just a person that's in front of you. That happens to be the Indiana Hoosiers this week. And it comes down to leadership. These seniors, man, they know they should have had that one last week, but they also know that the season isn't over yet. So let's go out there and get that bad taste out of our mouth, man. Rinse it out, spit it out, get a win, go punch them in the face, and don't make this one close, man. Don't make this one close. Remind people of the collective body of work and not the moment that we fell short. We still are who we say we are. And that's what I'm anticipating and expecting and looking forward to see.
All right, Jake's got 35-10. I've got 35-6. I'm curious to see. This could be one of those games where Michigan could. I never predict shutouts. Those are hard to get. But when you think about the fact that when they played Penn State, Pro Football Focus still says that Michigan's got a better defense than Penn State. So I wouldn't be surprised on their third string quarterback if they find a way to actually get the shutout. The defense needs that type of confidence before it goes into Happy Valley, I think. So I'm curious to see what happens there. All right, that's going to do it for us today. For Jake Butt, the Mackey Award-winning tight end, I'm Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire. We will talk to you soon. Thank you for watching or listening. Peace.